aka long road drive this morning. Swansea about 6:30. 5.5 hours in the car, so it wasn't too bad. It was a clean run. It was just a long way. I pretty much had to cross the whole country coming from South Wales. Yeah, so once I got to Norfolk, I went straight to the race venue at Holkham Hall. Went through transition, ride the bike. I then went for a little bit of a drive around the course. So drove sort of 40 miles of the course, had a little look at some of the corners. So as I drove some of the course, just had a look at some of the corners, anything to look out for race day. All seemed pretty good. The back end of the ride looked really fast and fun. Pretty much a main road and just nice and you're gonna be able to get quite aero and that and just tuck down. It's now 4:30 PM. I'm just out for a shakeout jog, so 20 minutes. Yeah, just trying to feel good on my feet, really. Once I've done this run now, I'm gonna go back to the hotel, shower, dinner, and then pretty much just get my legs up ready for tomorrow. So I'll see you in the morning.
Well done. Great swim, Andrew.
But also, having made a proper time through the swim as expected, second place 2 weeks ago in Nottingham. Today, waiting with the elite starters not on the crew.
Yeah, I think after 2 weeks ago, I knew that my legs were going to be a little bit tired coming into this weekend. My kind of goal with the PTO event was kind of get myself up as quick as I could, try and see if I could ride to the front of the race, because that's where I want to try and be next year, which I kind of achieved. I think I came into transition third but virtually leading, and then I stacked it going into T2. and both my right quad and my left hamstring just instantly tightened. And then yeah, it was 21k of just struggling. Not the most pretty of runs, but I got to the end and I'm averagely happy with that result. It's not what I wanted today, but the first two disciplines were on, so. Okay, so Outlaw half Holkham is done. This is a really late filming for this. This is Wednesday afternoon now. I just sort of got back after the weekend, had loads of sort of things going on, so just had to really crack on with them. And yeah, so we wanted to get around to this, do a little bit of a debrief from the race. Hopefully you've seen some cool footage. First of all, I want to say a massive thank you to Outlaw. 2 weeks after Outlaw half Nottingham, so they had a really quick turnaround, but they absolutely smashed it. It was so well run. The organisation, all the volunteers, everyone was so helpful and so friendly. It's really difficult to put on successful events, especially like back to back. So all credit where credit is due there. So thank you very much for like allowing us to race. Yeah, so on to the performance. Not my best day. After 2 weeks ago, my sort of I was sort of on cloud nine. I was kind of really positive about how I'd done, and then like heading into this weekend, I was trying to sort of carry that wave, and there was kind of like goods and bads of the day. So I'll kind of go through again, just swim, bike, run, what I was really happy with, what I think I could have done better, and then obviously where that leaves me now moving forward. Okay, so swim, we started roughly like 4 to 4.5 minutes behind the PTO men. There was a 2-minute gap to the PTO women, and then a 2-minute gap to the elite men. I was the second elite male to go off, and I had Will Cowan just behind me, and I think Harry Palmer was another sort of 8 seconds behind him. So swim kind of went to plan. It was kind of a 2-step dive in. I dived into the water. I instantly went round the swimmer who started 4 seconds in front of me, and I was kind of chasing down the PTO women quite quickly. So I kind of passed them before we got to the turnaround, and then on the way back it was just solo swimming. Actually felt really good. At Nottingham I had a bit of a side stitch, but during Holkham I kind of just got into a really nice rhythm. I actually saved my legs a little bit more this time, and it felt really comfortable. Just as I was coming into T2, I started to catch the back of the PTO Pro men, and just before coming out of the water, sorry, I passed Will Draper, which was obviously quite useful then, getting onto the bike and not being completely isolated. As we ran through T1, me and Will kind of exchanged a few sort of words with each other, and he kind of vocally said to me, like, let's kind of work together, obviously legally, to try and sort of bridge up to the back of the pro men. And obviously from me starting so far behind, I was obviously very keen for this. Out onto the bikes, nice little climb to get out of the estate, but as soon as we're on the main roads, me and Will Draper for the first 10k were kind of switching turns, working reasonably hard, and I think he'd probably agree with that, just because we knew that we wanted to catch as many people as we could. But somewhere between 10 and 15k we came up to the back of Sam Proctor and Will Monday, which was really good because I think they were kind of out of T1 almost 60 seconds ahead of us, so we kind of closed that gap quite quickly. And once we picked them up, it was kind of yeah, a bit of group dynamics. I'd say that I spent the majority of the time at the front. Will Draper and Will Monday kind of had a couple of turns, and we sort of just carried on working together. The next sort of 2 people we caught were James and Chris Danage, and we caught them on a nice sort of hilly section. So as I went past Will and I retook the lead before we went past them, I said, come on, let's try and blow past them. Because I was very kind of aware that if you kind of get onto a train, you can kind of ride that train quite comfortably. Unfortunately, even like with those really big efforts, we didn't actually manage to break apart. So we actually had a group of, once we got them, we had a group of 6, which was kind of frustrating. I kind of kept the pace hot on the front. In my head, I wanted, my kind of goal for this race was kind of to see how far up in the PTO race I could get, especially from starting from behind. So I kind of kept that mentality then moving into the rest of the bike leg. So I saw Reece Barkley and Sam Wade slightly up the road, and we hit the nice fast section on the A road, and I just sat on the front tapping away. I was doing some big efforts and sort of the high 300s. obviously easing up every so often to try and let the legs come back around, and then I'd put the pressure back down on the pedals, and we kind of closed that gap, and I hit the front straight away. And the last sort of 15-20k kind of was just a bit of a train. I kept really trying to push the pace at the front of the race, thinking that maybe if I was really putting the pace down, that people might drop off the back, or there might be a gap between me and the second man in the train, and I might be able to get away. But it just never really came to anything, and that's going to be one of my takeaways from that whole race. A couple of people came round for sort of brief goes for like 60 seconds, but actually as soon as that happened, I felt the pace slow a little bit, and I just went back to the front, and I just kept the pace hot, because I think there were still 2 guys up the road, and we caught Jack Willis not long after Sam Wade and Reece Barkley, but there were still 2 guys other than that up the road. So I just thought, we've got to try and see if we can get as close to them as we can, and we almost caught Kieran Linders going into T2, but not quite. He sort of had probably 45 seconds on us as we approached the T2. Off the bike into T2, and sort of came in running pretty well. Could feel the legs were a bit tender. I then actually just hit a little bit of a bump running with my bike, and my bike front wheel went sideways. I then went shoulder planting into the floor, and as I fell, I kind of hit the floor and my whole body kind of cramped up, a bit like almost like preparing for the shock. So my left hamstring and my right quad, I could just feel them sort of tighten up, and I was like, oh no, this is this is going to be an interesting run. So waddled back, picked up my bike, waddled over to the rack, started putting my shoes on because I still feel the hamstring cramping. So started off really, really controlled, and actually then it just turned into 21k of trying to survive. Really, I dropped my run nutrition as well. I was going to the feed stations trying to drink Coke. I had a few walking breaks, had a bit of a side stitch, and therefore a little bit of stomach discomforts. But yeah, so it was a bit frustrating because I'd caught so much up. So sort of 4.5 minutes, I caught up on the majority of those guys, and even if I'd had like an okay run, I probably would have beaten most of them. And I think that's the most frustrating thing, is that I just had a terrible run. Coming into the last sort of 3-4k, my legs started coming back around. My stride started opening back up, and I actually closed the last few k pretty well. Kind of the pace I wanted to run the whole half marathon at. So frustrating, but massive takeaways from the race. So some of the positives I've taken from the race, first off, my swim was in a good space. It can be better still, and I'm still managing the sort of top swimming pros in the pro wave. We're still sort of 35-40 seconds slower than I was swimming solo, so I think that's a confidence boost for me, knowing that when I do make the step up, I will be at the front of the race from the get-go. Second thing is I kind of showed my strength on the bike. I probably went a little bit too hard, which obviously then affected the run. And then the final kind of positive is that even with a slow run, I was kind of right up in the mix. If I was a few minutes quicker, I might have made top 5. 4 or 5 minutes quicker, I would have been right in the podium where I wanted to be. But I think it's given me confidence. I think there's lots of positive takeaways. I'm not far from where I want to be in the next year. Some of the sort of negatives, but I say negatives, they're more like learning curves I think I've taken from the races. To break away from a group of riders when you're traveling at 42, 43, 44k an hour, especially for like an average, I think the average speed was like 42k an hour for the whole ride. To break away from a group of riders takes a significant amount of effort, and I think if I'm ever in the position where I want to try and break away again, you've got to go harder for a short duration of time. So you're really putting the hammer down to try and create that gap, sustain that effort so that no one can sort of keep up with the wheel and keep up with the draft, and then hope that it sticks. I think what I was doing, which was sort of hard threshold kind of efforts, were good. But when you're sitting 12 meters back, and you probably heard this in other videos, if you're second wheel, third wheel, fourth wheel, you could be pushing 200, 250 watts and sort of sitting in quite comfortably. So that's one thing. The second thing is, my takeaway is, if I'd been slightly more tactical on that last sort of 25, 30k in that race, I could have ran a lot better, I think, just because I think I fried my legs coming into T2. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to try and revisit some of the volume I've done in the last couple of months. So try and get some longer rides in, get a longer run or two in, because I've only got 2.5 weeks now till Outlaw Full. Once again, thank you so much if you've tuned in to watch some of these videos. I'll be trying to make another pre-race for Outlaw Full and also a race day video for Outlaw Full. I might do a race day video and a separate debrief video, depending on how much footage I get. I really appreciate all the comments and likes, so just keep commenting below, subscribe to the channel so you can keep up to date with these videos. Cheers, thanks again to everyone for watching the video today, and I'll see you on the next one.